Hello, friends. I'm Doug Terrell, and this is History and Comment for Thursday, the 16th day of September, 2021. In the year 681, the Third Council of Constantinople finishes debating certain thoughts on the nature of Christ. In their decree, they denounce doctrines held by Pope Honorius I, who had died in 625. They proclaim him and a list of bishops to be anathema or put out and shunned. The exact thoughts of Honorius and conversely the council dealt with the divine and human nature of Jesus. The exact argument has been the center of countless debates that begun during Christ's ministry and continue to this day. It's not completely possible for those of us living in a finite physical world to comprehend the eternal spirit world, any more than a snail can understand a bird's world. James Penny is born in 1875 in Missouri. He wants to study law, but his father's early death forces him to take a job as store clerk to support his family. In 1898, he moves to Colorado due to tuberculosis and begins working in a small chain of stores called Golden Rule. The owners, impressed with Penny, offer him a stake in a new store opening in Kennemer, Wyoming. In 1907, the principal partners dissolve their partnership, and Penny buys the 3 stores. He grows his chain, and in 1912, it is incorporated as J.C. Penney & Company. Jacob Schick is born in 1877. Schick spent a couple of stints in the Army, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel. But we do not remember his military exploits. Schick is synonymous with shaving, and he will invent the first electric razor. On this day in 1893, the fourth and largest land run was held in what is now northern Oklahoma. At noon on this day, settlers could stake claims for free land, which they had to settle and maintain. The land in question had been ceded to the Cherokees, but was purchased back by the federal government. In the land rush, individual Cherokees could and did stake claims. The nickname Sooners came about in the land rush as a description for people who staked their claim before or sooner than the noon deadline. Hans Augusto Riersbach is born in 1898 in Hamburg, Germany. Being Jewish, he and his wife moved to Paris as the Nazis were coming into power in their native land. There they write and illustrate a children's book called Sealy G and the 9 Monkeys. The book is not a success, but one of the 9 monkeys is the emerging star. The Rays escape Paris on homemade bicycles just hours ahead of the German army. In the few belongings the couple escape with was their next manuscript that featured a little monkey named Curious George. The couple make their way to America and continue to write and illustrate children's books. William Durant was a leading builder of horse-drawn wagons and disliked the automobile. A fellow Flint, Michigan wagon maker sold him Buick Motor Company in 1904, and on this day in 1908, he forms a holding company called General Motors. GM purchases Buick from Durant, and a year later, Oldsmobile and several others. GM tries to purchase Ford in 1909. Durant is given the heave from the company, forms Chevrolet in a partnership with a race car driver named Louis Chevrolet. Durant buys back into General Motors, taking Chevrolet into the fold before getting the heave for the second time. Car bombings are just a modern take on an older idea. In 1920, a horse-drawn wagon loaded with 100 pounds of dynamite and another 500 of iron weights was detonated on one of the busiest street corners on Wall Street at noon. 38 people died as a result, and hundreds were injured. The attack was believed to have been the work of Italian anarchists. On the same day, miles away from New York City, in Cleveland, Ohio, Arthur Sanson is born. Known as Art, he earns a living as a draftsman for General Electric, but he turns his drawing skills to comics. His first strip, which he is co-creator of, was Chris Walken, Planeteer, which ran from 1952 until 1964. Then in 65, Brutus Thornapple is created, and the Born Loser strip begins its run. Betty Persky is born in 1924. Her first career as a model and theater usher. Her appearance as a teenage model on the cover of Harper's Bazaar draws the interest of Hollywood, and the rest is history. Persky's parents had divorced when she was 5, and her mother and her take her mother's maiden surname, Bacall. Lauren Bacall will be one of the best-known female actors of the 20th century. We have 2 birthdays in 1950, but hardly related. First, the younger half of the musical brother duet, the Bellamy Brothers, David, is born. The second probably cannot say Southern rock or country. Historian Henry Louis Gates Jr. has a doctorate from Cambridge. He has extensively studied African history and literature in America and is the creator and host of the PBS series Finding Your Roots. In a predecessor series, Gates, who is fond of his African heritage and speaks on black issues, found that genetically he is 50% European and may descend from the 4th century Irish king, Niall of the 9 Hostages. Illusionist David Copperfield is 65. Retired Major League Baseball player Orel Hershiser is 63. The Xerox 914, the first widely successful copier, is introduced in 1959. About 3 times the size of a current copier, the 914 rented for $25 a month, plus 10 cents a copy and a nickel more for supplies. It was capable of copying letter and legal-size pages at a speed of 7 copies a minute. Americans love to complain about the hardships and flaws in the United States, but it really amounts to whining. In 1979, 8 East Germans built a homemade hot air balloon and fly it out of the country, which might be high-tech compared to what Cubans would be willing to sail to Florida if we didn't turn them back. And that's History and Comments for the 16th day of September. I'm Doug Terrell. Now go and do something worth remembering.